So this is the last part of the chapter. The Lemurids and the Tarsiers were the first to reach their apogee toward the end of the Eocene. As for the anthropoids, they can be discerned in Africa from the Oligocene, but they evidently must not have achieved their maximum diversification in size until the close of the Pliocene in Africa and in India, always tropical or subtropical zones. Let us keep both this date and distribution in mind. They contain an entire lesson in themselves. And by the way, there's this diagram here showing the evolution, the phylogenetic evolution of all of these different primates. Here, therefore, is how the primates are situated from the outside, by their exterior form and in duration. Now let us penetrate the interior of things and try to understand what distinguishes these animals from the others seen from the inside. At first sight, what catches the anatomist's eye on observing the monkeys, and above all the higher monkeys, or apes, I guess we would call them. The New World, usually called monkeys, the Old World primates, apes, I think. At first sight, what catches the anatomist's eye in observing the monkeys is the surprisingly slight degree of differentiation shown by their bones. In the monkeys, cranial capacity is relatively much more voluminous than in any other of the mammals. But what can be said about the rest? Their teeth? An isolated molar belonging to the Dryopithecus or to the chimpanzee can easily be mistaken for a tooth belonging to an Eocene omnivore, such as the condylarth. Their limbs? With their rays wholly intact, their limbs precisely preserve the plan and proportion they had in the very first tetrapods of the Paleozoic. In the course of the Tertiary, the hoofed mammals radically transformed the adjustment of their legs. The carnassials reduced and sharpened their dentition. The whales, dolphins, and porpoises retapered themselves like fishes. The proboscideans formidably complicated their incisors and molars. And all during this time, the primates were the ones who kept their ulna and fibula intact, who jealously protected their 5 fingers, who remained typically tritubercular, 3 types of teeth. Would this mean that they are the conservatives among the mammals, the most conservative of all? No. But they proved themselves to be the most wary. Grasped at its optimum, differentiation of an organ is itself immediately a factor of superiority, but because it is irreversible, differentiation also locks the animal undergoing it into a narrow path, at the end of which, under the thrust of orthogenesis, the animal risks ending up either as something monstrous or fragile. Specialization paralyzes. Ultra-specialization kills. Paleontology is made up of such catastrophes, because until the Pliocene, the limbs of the primate remained the most primitive among the mammals. The primates remained the most free. Now, what did they make of this freedom? They used it to lift themselves in successive bursts to the very frontiers of intelligence. And here, simultaneously with the true definition of the primates, we have right in front of us the answer to the problem that had led us to look at the primates. After the mammals at the close of the Tertiary, where will life be able to continue? First of all, we see that the interest and the biological value of the primates lie in the fact that they represent a phylum of pure and direct cerebralization. Certainly, nervous systems and instinct are gradually going to increase in other mammals as well. But in the others, this internal work has been diverted, limited, and finally arrested by secondary differentiation. At the same time as their psyche was rising, the horse, the deer, and the tiger, like the insect, turned into partial prisoners of the instruments for running and catching prey that their limbs had become. In the primates, on the other hand, neglecting the rest and consequently allowing it to remain plastic, the evolutionary movement worked directly on the brain. And that is why it is the primates who hold the lead in the rising advance toward greater consciousness. In this privileged and singular case, the orthogenesis of the phylum coincides exactly with the principal orthogenesis of life itself. According to an expression of Osborne's, which I will borrow, changing the meaning, it is aristogenesis, and thus limitless. From this we draw our first conclusion, that if the mammals form a dominant branch, the dominant branch on the tree of life, the primates, that is, the cerebromanuals, are the ones who form the axis or main stem of this branch, and the anthropoids, the very bud in which it terminates. And since this is the case, let us add, it is easy to decide where to fix our attention on the biosphere as we wait for what is to happen. Everywhere, as we knew before, the summits of the active phyletic lineages grow warm with consciousness. But in a clearly defined region, at the center of the mammals, where the most powerful brains ever constructed by nature are being formed, they redden, and already, even at the heart of this zone, a point of incandescence flares. Let us not lose sight of that line crimsoned with the dawn. After rising for thousands of years below the horizon, in a narrowly localized spot, a flame is about to burst forth. Thought is here. Now begins part 3 of the book, which I'm not going to read. You'll have to get the book and read it yourself. Yeah, thanks for listening if you've gotten this far. I definitely recommend The Human Phenomenon because Teilhard offers a position neither of the sort of mechanized materialism that many of those in favor of a Darwinian interpretation of evolution hold to, nor does he take a sort of intelligent design view of evolution where the whole of the created universe, including each species, was created by fiat, by an act of God. Instead, for Teilhard, the creation of the cosmos is in fact the incarnation of God, and it moves through phases of increasing self-realization until it arrives at the omega point, which I'm not going to talk about. So thanks for listening.